Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Making Sense of It All with Jesse Stakes. Today I have Victoria Duke. She is with Rock Solid Law. Victoria, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Jesse. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you. So we met actually at a presentation that you and Rock Solid Law were doing on estate planning, and I thought it would be fantastic to bring it to the audience. I thought it was great information. I thought you delivered it well. So I really appreciate you doing this, taking me up on my offer. And before we jump into all of that though, I really wanted to take a step back and talk about you and who you are and what made you do what you do. So what made you even be an attorney in the first place?
It's a good question. So I actually kind of stumbled into law a little bit. I graduated college very, very, very young, a couple months after I turned 20, and kind of
Wow.
didn't really know what I
Congratulations to you on that.
yeah, kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do. And my uncle owned a law practice in the small town that I'm from. And I started working for him as a legal assistant and really just fell in love with it, and quickly became his senior litigation paralegal. And because of our close family relationship and my love for law, I got to be really involved with our clients of the firm because there was a lot of trust there, of course, with working and operating in a family business in a small town with people that knew my whole family, that have known me my whole life. And so I really got to be a part of this dynamic and I loved it. And I was actually just, years had gone by sitting in my office, and my uncle came in my office one day and goes, "So when are you going to go to law school?" And I was like, "What? Never? Not going to do that." And he was like, "Oh yeah, no, you're supposed to be doing this. You need to go to law school and become an attorney. It's not a big deal. All you have to do is get your JD and pass the bar." And I said, "Oh, that's it." So, but sure enough, if he said I could do it, I've, always admired him. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. And so if he thought I could do it, I knew I could. So I went to law school. I graduated in the top 20% of my class and been practicing pretty much estate planning and probate mainly since then.
That's fantastic. So let's jump into that really quick. What is it that made you want to focus on estate planning and probate? Because I mean, some people would look at that and find that,
Boring, maybe.
yeah, I wasn't going to use that word, but that we can use it. You called it. So I mean, some people might find it boring. Some people might find it, like that they're not dealing with the exciting part of, some people think about being in a courtroom or they think about those types of things. So what is it that made you focus on estate planning and probate?
Well, I know for me, the joy that I find with my job is I love to help people.
Hmm.
And surprisingly, I know I am an attorney, but I don't like to fight. I'm a lover, not a fighter. So I don't particularly like being in litigation and constantly in these, adverse positions with people. The thing that estate planning gives me is I get to work with families and really kind of help give them peace of mind. We aren't worried about fighting somebody else or them having to, pay lots of money to fight something new in court that they, don't understand why that's happening to them or why they're getting sued. I'm really focused on just making them feel better about planning out their legacy. So it's a really nice thing that I get to do for
Yeah.
people, and I feel like I get to be a nice part of their life and I get to help them out, and I'm not fighting with anybody. And so I really enjoy it. In that sense, I also do, the flip side of estate planning, which is probate, where there can be fighting, but normally that's also just helping families through a really difficult time, so that they can grieve and process that a little bit better.
No, I think it's a great way to say it. And I always tell people, like in a sales setting, even like it's like you want to like it's like feeling you're on the same side of the table with somebody instead of sitting in opposition on the other side of the table from them.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. You know, when it comes to estate planning, probate, I think that there are terms that people hear a lot, but they don't necessarily understand them. And so I'd love to break them down for the audience first, as far as what is probate? Like people hear it and they think, okay, I've got to go to court over something that they're inheriting, but they don't really understand what it is.
Yeah. So probate is our court process here in the state of Florida. that it's our way of getting a deceased person's assets to their beneficiaries. And we go to probate. We don't always go to probate, not because someone passes away will we go to probate, but we go to probate because we have these probatable assets, as I like to call them, or assets that we have to probate. But probate it is a court proceeding. I mean, it is essentially we're going in front of a judge and we're throwing up all this information so that we can take care of somebody's estate and divvy their stuff out.
So, all right. So people think, okay, if I have a will in place or if I have something that's directing for my estate or for what I have to be given to my children or to be given to the people that I decide to give it to, some people think if I have that in place, probate's not necessary. It doesn't exist then. Is that true?
Yeah, well, no. What I run into with a lot of people is they don't even know probate's a thing. They don't even know that we have this court proceeding. And a lot of people think, number one, either my stuff just goes to my kids magically, easily, or they think, well, I have a will. So I have a last will and testament says my kids get everything that's how it works. And actually, no. Again, we go to probate. We have to do this probate process, not because we have a will or we don't have a will, but because we have these probatable assets.
So when you say probatable assets, can you give us some examples of what those are?
Yeah. So a probatable asset is anything that you own that is titled in your name alone. This could be your checking account, your investment portfolio, a retirement account, the home that you live in, your vehicle, your boat, you name it. Anything that's titled and attached to your name alone is going to have to go to probate. If there's not, some bank accounts we do have the ability to put beneficiaries on them. So that will stay out of probate. We can talk a little bit more about that in detail. But if you don't have beneficiary designations on these bank accounts and other assets that you can't put a beneficiary on, like your home or your vehicle, those things, because you're the only person on them that owned them, when you're no longer with us, nobody has the authority to sign off on those items. And that's why we have to have probate, because probate gives us a person called a personal representative that is now in charge of signing off on those things and transferring those assets over.
So I know that the next question is, I'm sure you get all the time, is how do I avoid that? If I'm in a situation where I'm listening to this and maybe I just shattered somebody's idea of what it looks like that they're passing on to their loved ones, how do you avoid it? How do you eliminate that process?
Yeah, good question. So, in looking at people and the things that they have, I kind of like to break down the different type of assets that people have and explain to them why this asset would go to probate. And then we can kind of use these different, I call them estate planning tools, to kind of change those assets to keep them out of probate. So when it comes to your bank accounts, retirement accounts, investment portfolios, anything with our cash money in it, so long as you have a payable on death, transfer on death, or beneficiary listed on those accounts, and that beneficiary is alive when you pass away, and the bank has not lost any of that paperwork, then those assets are going to flow to those beneficiaries, and we're not going to have to probate them. Now, on the flip side, something like a home is a lot more difficult. There's only two ways that we can avoid a home or other real property that you own in Florida going to probate. And our first tool for that is called a ladybird deed. That is also known as an enhanced life estate deed. And what that deed does is it attaches to your home. It's a very specific piece of property that it attaches to. And it says, my home is mine for life. I can do whatever I want. I can sell it, lease it, paint it purple, catch it on fire, so long as my HOA is happy, whatever. But upon my death, it immediately transfers over to the person or maybe a couple people that I've listed on there. Now, that tool is not perfect for every person in every situation. I can't put minor children on a ladybird deed. I can't, sometimes if we get into a situation where you have 20 beneficiaries or 20 people you want to put in your will, putting 20 people on a deed is not the best idea. So the flip side to that, the other way to actually avoid your home going into probate is to have a revocable living trust. And your home goes into your trust. It becomes a trust asset, and trust assets are non-probatable. So anything that is in your trust will never have to go to probate. So we can actually not only your home, but in a trust, you can rope in all of your bank accounts, your investment portfolio, your life insurance policy, your vacation home in North Carolina. You can rope all of that in there. We don't have to worry about banks losing any beneficiary designation. And then you can do a lot of cool planning with your trust that goes a little bit above and beyond some more simplistic estate planning tools, which is great for people who have lots of beneficiaries, people who have, lots of parameters that they want to put on things before their beneficiaries get stuff, and then also, of course, for people that have minor children.
I think one of the things when you start bringing up the word trust, some people think, oh, that's for rich people. That's for, those are for ultra wealthy people. That's not for me.
Yeah.
That's not the case, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. So we're seeing a big trend with trusts over the last, I would say, 1 to 2 decades. And back in the day, it was just kind of this nuanced thing that not a lot of attorneys were doing. So it was kind of something that was considered for the wealthy because, a lot of small town lawyers or normal people, they weren't doing this. We're doing wills, we're going to probate. That is what it is. We've become so much more sophisticated with trusts in the last 2 decades. Bank accounts are well aware of them now. Bank accounts and bank institutions know what to do with them. Title companies are familiar with trusts now. They know how to sell property that's in a name of the trust. They're not so taboo anymore. And so they're definitely not for the wealthy. I always say, you need a trust if your situation calls for it. Not everybody wants or needs a trust, and that's totally okay. But some people can really, really benefit from one.
No doubt. And I don't think that you really, unless you actually have a conversation about it, unless you actually have, a conversation with someone like yourself to where you truly understand what it is and you can gain information from those people to see what their situation is, you don't really know if it would benefit you or not.
No, no. And I have clients all the time, that come in and talk to me and they're sometimes usually one way or the other. And they'll say, okay, I'm coming in here because I want to trust. And we talk through things and I'm like, all right, well, let's see what we're looking at. And sometimes, they don't necessarily need a trust, and it may be a bit more complex than what they really need for their estate plan. On the other side, I have people that'll come in and they say, I don't want to hear anything about a trust. I don't want anything to do with that. And I go, that's okay. Well, at the end of the day, it's your estate plan. We can do, whatever we need to do. There's a lot of things that are important about estate planning that aren't just, a trust or a will. So it depends on the person. And that's what I'm here. And the thing that I enjoy most about my job is I'm here to inform, give information, explain things. But at the end of the day, it's my job to get what you want done.
100%. Well, and I was telling you before we started recording, I had a good friend of mine that I was telling that I was doing this conversation with you today. And he was like, can you ask? He's like, how do the ultra wealthy people avoid, essentially pass their wealth down generation to generation? And I think that, I don't think there's probably not one size that fits all or one answer that fits all. But one of the things that I hear you saying that, and you please correct me if I'm wrong here, but the reality of it is that people who put effort into this part of their financial situation is planning for that transfer of wealth, planning for how their estate will be divvied up is really key to making sure that the maximum amount of that estate is going to pass to the next generation or pass to the people that you want to have it rather than the government having it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's kind of twofold to that. One, I kind of say Florida is a great place to come to die if you want to. Florida actually does not have estate taxes for the state themselves. We go off the federal tax limit right now, which is very, very high right now. So a lot of people can transition a good chunk of their wealth. But what a lot of people don't understand is if we don't plan and we kind of end up in these situations where we have a full-blown probate proceeding and maybe we have people fighting over things because it's not clear where stuff was going to go, or we're having to track down heirs and do heir searches that cost thousands and thousands of dollars to try to track down people that we don't know where they are, or just attorney's fees and personal representative fees for probate statutorily is pretty much 3% of your entire estate for both. So that's a 6%. So we in not planning, we end up kind of forced in these situations where we can start chunking off big parts of the estate that we could have really never had to do if we just planned.
No, no doubt. It's that old saying, not or failing to plan is planning to fail.
Yes, yes.
It's crazy. Let's take a step back really quick though, and also I'd like for you to define what is estate planning for the audience. We've talked about pieces of this, but really, what is it all encompassing of? Because you have said that these are parts of it, but maybe people don't know what is all encompassing of what estate planning is for you in your practice.
Yeah. So I say there's two, but sometimes three big parts of estate planning. Part number one is planning for death, right? There's a lot that goes into that planning for
Super sexy, super fun, planning for your death. Yes.
all the I always say sometimes people ask me, "Oh, what law do you practice?" And I go, "All the death ones." But a big part of estate planning, of course, is planning for death, not only where our stuff is going to go, but perhaps when you get to that last final point of life, do you want to be artificially prolonged on machines and tubes, or do you want to die naturally? Things like that. So planning for death. Then we have a big part that a lot of people don't think or realize, which is planning for incapacity, which is if I get Alzheimer's, dementia, if I'm in a car accident, have a coma, or on the fun side of things, maybe you're just gallivanting around in Europe for too long and you can't simply be bothered to handle stuff back here in the States. Planning for incapacity is a big part. And then the third part, which only, is true for some people, is planning for your minor children.
Okay.
Making sure who's going to be in charge, not only of their little person if you're not here, but also their stuff that they're going to inherit from you. Who passing over the torch to people to not only raise your children, but be in charge of their financials is a really big decision.
No doubt, and probably one you should have conversations with people before surprising them with this is my last will and testament.
That's true.
So speaking of that, that's something that you do as well, correct? You help people develop their wills and their as far as how they're going to direct those assets at the end there, correct?
Yeah. So absolutely. And what I do with clients is I just start off by having a conversation. I don't say, do you want a will? Do you want to trust? All this stuff. I just say, I start off with, tell me about your goals and tell me
Mhm.
about what you're worried about, because that's really when you learn, what somebody wants, what they don't want. I have people that come in and go, I just got done with my dad's probate and it was absolutely awful. My goal is to completely avoid that. Or I have people that say, I have a bunch of minor children and it's, I just want to make sure that's airtight and everyone knows what's going to happen. That's my biggest thing. And we really work off of that because at the end of the day, I work for my clients and my job is to give them a peace of mind and to get this done for them. So I want to know basically what brought them in front of me, what they're worried about, what they want to see happen. I've done a lot of crazy, cool, fun estate plans for people. And that's just by getting to know them. And that's another part of the job that I really love is I get to work with people and tailor their estate plan, which is their legacy. And that means
All right. You opened the door there, so you don't have to name names. You don't have to, you don't have to hurt the innocent here, but you got to tell us some stories.
yeah. I've done let's see, I've done a really cool pet trust that was for a family that was very, very, very involved in their community and charity outreach. And I ended up building a trust with them I think it was a total of like 36 animals, but it was like horses, dogs, cats, you name it. And that was so cool because there was not a lot I knew there was not going to be fighting with that one. It was just very cool to set that one up. I've also had some really awesome clients that I've worked with. I had a couple one time, they were a really big part of their estate plan was their music. They had been in a band together for most of their life. So they had original music, original recordings. They had all these friends that had done different bands. So a lot of their estate plan was what was going to happen with their different guitars that they had. And I got to see pictures of when they did certain performances with that guitar and, listen to their original music that they had. And so it's cool. A lot of times it's people's whole life, and
Yes.
kind of everything that transpires from that. So it's a really can be a really fun thing, and I try to make it fun and nice and not so gloomy, but more so just being happy about looking back on life, and it can be a fun, cool thing.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, the more you talk about it, the more you really kind of open the door to it instead of just thinking about, I think people get afraid of death. They get afraid of thinking about the end and they don't think about all of the looking back, the memories, the thoughts, and also the gifts that they're giving their own people on the way out the door. And so I think that when you bring it back to all the things that are the positives about it, you really do kind of you take that gloominess away or you take the negatives out of it.
I can say a big part of why people don't get their estate planning done is it's gloomy. I mean, death is a hard thing for people to talk about. It is. I
Hard
mean,
to acknowledge.
it's hard. It's hard. Sometimes it's a concept we really cannot wrap our brains around. These kind of like looming thoughts that a lot of people have about it. And so a lot of times planning when you're not so close to it can be really, really helpful, because you're kind of thinking like, oh, one day when this happens, in the future, I've noticed that can be really helpful for people. Um, and then just kind of you sit down, you plan it, you think about it, you're done, and then you never have to think about it ever again. And that sometimes works for people as well.
Is that how it works though? Like, is it one of those things? Is it kind of touch it once, put it away, and it's there, or is it something that you have to maintain throughout your life once you do it?
Well, it's always good to maintain with really big events in life, asset purchases. It's always good to have follow-ups, but some of the really hard parts about, what do I want for my end of life care and things of that nature, that can sometimes be the really hard part for people.
Makes sense.
And sometimes we can kind of get that part done, and then we don't really have, most people, once they've made a decision about that, they don't really come back or want to change that. Now, I will say, estate plannings are usually ever evolving unless you've done a lot of thinking about it and you don't really have changes after the fact. But it kind of, again, everything just depends on a person's life and what happens. I've done estate plans for families that a few years later, unfortunately lose a child, and now we're coming back and we're changing a plan because we no longer have a child to leave stuff for, and that's hard, and that's not something we ever want to plan for, and things of that nature. But sometimes you have really bad things. Sometimes I have clients that come in that just moved to Florida and they need a revamped plan because everything they had was from Virginia, and now we've got, we still have our Virginia home, but we're mainly down here in Florida, and we need to revamp that and make it nicer. And that's a fun thing. That's, growing your estate, growing your portfolio, moving somewhere different, warm and sunny. I mean, it'd be fun.
Well, I think when you're bringing these things up, it evokes other questions you don't think about until it gets brought up. But you brought up something that I think does bear kind of bringing attention to. You have somebody who lived in California or lived in New York or in one of these larger cities that they decide to relocate their residence to Florida in retirement. There are things that change that they probably should come see someone like yourself.
Oh, absolutely. I'm the one kind of annoying thing about the states is that each state has their own own laws and own way of doing stuff and own way of passing property off. So absolutely, if you because your estate is dictated in the state that you live at the time of your death, where you're domiciled. So if you come to Florida and you are like, I'm staying here, I'm retired, this is my new home, absolutely they need to come talk to someone like me because again, Florida has really favorable things too that other states may not have, and we don't want to have to force you to go based off your California plan when you could very well have a much better Florida plan in place.
No doubt, 100%. I think that's really important. I think it's very relevant right now for the state of Florida because you have so many people that have moved here in the last 5, 6 years that are, if they haven't done it yet, it's really something you hear. If you're hearing this now, give Victoria a call because it could save you. It could save your family thousands and thousands, if not millions of dollars. One of the other things I wanted to kind of come back to a little bit, you had talked about being, in the if you're incapacitated during your life, that having an estate plan is something that can help you actually inside of your life, not just for the people that are here after your death.
Yeah,
Can you talk a little bit more about that as far as
absolutely. So, incapacity here in the state of Florida, if you are incapacitated and you don't have the estate planning tools to help with that, and I'll go into that. But if you don't have things in place and you become incapacitated and your loved ones, whether that be your spouse, your kid, your mom, you name it, needs to help you by getting in touch, getting into your bank account, getting into your finances, paying off your mortgage for you, or, putting you in a home or consenting to treatment or making other medical decisions for you. If you don't have your estate planning tools in place, the only way that that person can have authority to help you is by getting guardianship in the court system, not only over you, but over your property. And that's a very expensive, lengthy proceeding. It's actually two proceedings, but you have to have a panel of doctors come and evaluate you and determine that you are in fact incapacitated. And then the loved one that's just trying to take care of you has to prove to a judge, they have to give their fingerprints, background check, credit report, you name it. And then during the entire length of your incapacity, which could very well be until your death, they're having to continue with this court case. Every single year, they're having to come to the judge and file an accounting. If they need certain things, we have to petition the judge and ask for things. It can drain your estate just because that's the nature of the beast. Sometimes things are very expensive and it's very hard on families. So the way that we can actually avoid that proceeding from happening is with your estate tools that are your durable power of attorney and your healthcare surrogate. Your durable power of attorney is the document that says this person can pretty much do anything under the sun with my bank accounts, my social security, my mortgage, my mail, you name it. They can pretty much do anything except vote for you or get married for you.
a little scary?
A little scary, a little scary. It's a very powerful document.
Hmm.
And then the other side to that is your healthcare surrogate, which is the person that you've appointed that if you are not able to make medical decisions for yourself, this person can actually make medical decisions. And the reason that those two documents help you avoid guardianship is because you've already given somebody more authority than a judge would in that guardianship proceeding. So we've cut that out. You went ahead and said, this is the person that I'm going to allow to be able to do that. And they have the power to do it in case something happens to me.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that I hear there is that you are making the choice as an individual who is going to have control rather than somebody petitioning a court and taking control where you didn't grant control. And I think that is, I mean, anytime that we can have power over our own choices, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, I mean, that truly is any interested party can petition to be a guardian over you. They just have to, there's a certain level and we have to put certain different family members on notice, depending. But yeah, technically there's a lot of people that may not be the person that you wanted. And, those don't necessarily need to be the same person either. You may have somebody that you really trust that aligns really well with what you would like to see done medically for yourself, but then you might have somebody totally different that's a lot better at handling finances that you trust better to do that. And so for you to be able to have control in that situation is the best.
No doubt. One of the biggest things, and I say this to people in whether it's banking, if it's dealing with their CPAs or anything, it's important to have a relationship with the attorney you choose. And I think that everything that you're talking about here, everything requires that you develop a relationship with people to some extent. If they're going to have these conversations with you, you're building trust. You're building something to where they feel like they need to know you and you need to know them in order to make accurate and fair recommendations for them, for them to make decisions based on your recommendations. They have to trust you as a professional and as a person.
Yeah.
If people have really enjoyed what they're hearing, if they would like to have a conversation with you, and if they're interested in doing business with Rock Solid Law, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Honestly, the best way would probably just be to call up the office and get on my calendar to have a consultation.
And that's something you do all the time, yes?
All the time, all the time. And honestly, I mean, if someone calls in and says, "Hey, I listened to Victoria on making sense of it all podcast," they'll know what you're talking about. They'll put you right on my calendar so that we can start, moving and grooving on that.
We'll make sure that everybody has a link to their office, to their website in the description of this video, and we'll put it on all the socials as well. Victoria, I want to thank you very much. This has been very educational. It really, like, we went from saying that this is potentially boring material to really be, no, in all seriousness, like, from thinking about it as something that it's kind of gray, or kind of this, like, black and white to talk about, to something that's got a tremendous amount of color, and you really are dealing with all facets of somebody's life, the history of their life, the people that they love, the people that they care about. You're tying it all together with a bow, and you're making sure that what they care about passes on to the people that they care about and love.
Absolutely. Yep. And it's something I really do love. I love being a part. It's kind of like being a part of all of my clients, families. I'm involved in that. I get to know the good stuff, the bad stuff, the sad stuff. And, my clients leave me with a peace of mind, and they do. They feel better. They have a good understanding, and it makes me feel like that's what I'm supposed to be here doing.
No doubt. You couldn't have said it any better. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Jesse.